So I told you guys that one of the actually most dangerous areas of Chicago recently has been downtown, and with the robberies, the carjackings, and also shootings that take place in and around the nightclubs in the River North district. And you guys may remember this because it was getting a lot of news at the time. The guy's name was Thurman Bailey. A sentence has now come down in this case. A guy named Armand, he's actually from the suburbs. He was sentenced to 20 years in prison on Monday for a double shooting that left the nightclub bouncer dead and one of the club's owners injured in 2019. So this is something that happens a lot, and I'm going to talk about an incident with a student of mine a little bit later on in the video that was just heartbreaking, man. It was one of the worst days that I ever had as a substitute teacher in the schools. But anyways, this guy Armand, he's now 41. He received the sentence from the judge after pleading guilty to first-degree murder, according to court records. So prosecutors dropped 18 other felonies, including multiple counts of murder and attempted murder, in the plea deal. The other men accused of participating in the crime are a 39-year-old named John and a guy named Michael, who's 45, and they continue to fight the charges. So prosecutors say that the trouble began in late February 2019 when Michael became upset with how one of the sound bar's bouncers patted him down at the club's entrance. So early on March 8th, 2019, Michael and Armand returned to the club and got into an argument with the doorman, whose name was Thurman Bailey, and other members of the bar's staff. An argument broke out at the club's entrance and turned physical, with, I believe it was Armand punching Thurman, who pulled out a gun. That prompted Armand, who's a concealed carry license holder, to pull out his own weapon and fire 4 rounds before he handed the gun off. So the bouncer pulls out his gun, okay, as a response to this physical altercation, and then Armand pulls out his gun faster. So this is a little bit tricky situation, legally speaking, okay, because he was concealed carry and the bouncer had pulled out his gun first. The guy he handed it off to was that guy John that I had mentioned. John fired 9 more rounds, striking Bailey again and injuring the club's owner, who's I think a Polish guy named Mark, according to the state's initial allegations. Bailey was able to return fire before succumbing to his injuries, but nobody was struck by those shots. So Chicago Police Superintendent at the time, who was Eddie Johnson, issued a closure order for Soundbar 4 days after the shooting. They said the club reopened after developing a, quote, nuisance abatement plan with the city. So this is a big problem at nightclubs and bars and stuff. And Michael, whose case is still pending, was not accused of personally firing any shots during the altercation. Instead, prosecutors charged him under an Illinois law that allowed individuals involved in a felonious act to be charged with murder if somebody is killed during the commission of the crime. In his case, the additional felony is forcible mob action. So the other 2 guys, John and Michael, are due back in court. Armand has now taken 20 years. So this is kind of a tricky case legally. You know what I'm saying? To be honest with you, if I was on the jury, I don't know what I would have decided, because, okay, the altercation was physical, but it was the bouncer who escalated it to the level of firearms. They hadn't pulled out their gun until he pulled his out first. So, if somebody pulls out a gun on you, okay, it's fists or whatever, so it's not, nobody's afraid that we're going to get killed here yet. Somebody pulls out a gun, now he's taking it to another level, and I have every indication that he might be about to shoot me. I don't know that for a fact, but, okay, if he's pulling out a gun, that's not good, right? Okay, so I pull out my gun in self-defense and shoot him first. Okay, you can put it on them for maybe starting the whole problem, okay? But once the problem is started, though, taking it to the level of lethal force, I don't know if you can put that on them. You guys let me know what you think in the comment section, man, but this is a tricky situation legally. There's been other cases where, somebody has committed a crime like a robbery or something like that, and the person who got robbed chases down the robber, okay, and then some way puts the robber in fear for his life, and the robber defends his life with a gun, and the robber has beaten the case. Like, this has happened before, okay, even though he started the whole problem. So I've seen this go both ways. You guys let me know what you think in the comment section, man, but this is a very tricky legal case, man. So the student I was telling you guys about is a guy named Tim. He was at Sullivan High School, and his dad had just gotten out of prison. His dad had gotten real buff, okay? So he got a job as a nightclub bouncer, like downtown. So he's working security over at this nightclub, and I guess he was doing his job down there, and somebody shot him and killed him. And I had Tim in class the next day after his dad had just been killed, and man, it was like one of the toughest things that I've ever had to see in my entire life, man. Like he had just lost his, because he was excited his dad had been coming home from prison, finally get to see his dad again. His dad was in his life, helping him out and everything, and then just gets taken right after, just like that. So anybody who's thinking of getting a job as a nightclub bouncer, see, for felons, for convicted felons, okay, they go to prison, they get in great physical shape in prison. They put on a lot of muscle, so they can get that job, and it's one of the only jobs they can get if they have a criminal record. But in some ways, that's almost like more dangerous than going to the streets. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't even know if selling dope is as dangerous as that. It's like a nightclub bouncer, because you're constantly dealing with guys that have guns on them. And, at some point, if you're working that job long enough, there's going to be a problem. These nightclubs, man, want to get a job at like as a security or something, at a restaurant or a club or something like that. You got to pick one that has clientele that are not like, it doesn't attract street guys. You know what I'm saying? There was a place in my neighborhood that was having a problem with shootings and fights outside, and they eventually made the place have to close down. And it was a late night liquor spot that was on social media promoting itself in a way that you knew was going to attract gangbangers. You know what I'm saying? And guys that were in the streets and in that lifestyle. And that's not something you want to do. You want to attract families, have a breakfast spot, something like that. Or, if you're doing like a late night club, something that's going to attract like, business type clientele and stuff, and not street guys, man. And you guys know what I mean. Like, I don't have to go into detail about how exactly you need to theme the place, the kinds of music you need to play, food you need to serve, stuff that's going to make sure that you only cater to a certain segment of the market. It's not going to be problematic. So anyways, and by the way, when I'm saying if anybody's going to interpret this in a racial way, that's not what I mean at all. There's places like, black-owned businesses around here that are like breakfast spots that serve, a certain type of food, and they attract family, like black families with kids and stuff. You know what I'm saying? It's not that type of problematic clientele, gangbangers and stuff. The late night liquor spots do that, and I'm not talking about like the sports bars that attract like baseball fans. That's different. I'm talking about like, the types of places gangbangers like to frequent. You guys know what I mean? But yeah, so rest in peace to the victim. And apparently, he was not a street guy at all. His parents, he had both his parents. His parents were interviewed on the news, and he was just, a clean cut guy, working two jobs. Hardworking guy, man. Was trying to get his own business someday. But yeah, that's the kind of job that's highly dangerous. And also, again, guys, and this is something guys always get on me about. Again, another example of how having a gun made him less safe. Okay, every indication is that if he wouldn't have pulled that gun, wouldn't have had that gun, he'd probably still be alive. Probably would have taken a few licks, a few punches, but he'd still be here. Okay, he took the gun out for protection, and that was what ended up getting him killed. So you guys let me know what you think down in the comment section, man. This is your boy Chicago News. I'm out.